Hey everyone, welcome to How to Get a Data Science Job with Richard. Last week, or last episode, we basically went through Richard and we edited his resume using Beam Jobs. Today, we're going to go over how we're going to actually establish the job search timeline. We're going to set a job start date for Richard and then work backwards and figure out what he needs to do to basically accomplish that job start date. Then we're actually going to figure out what kind of jobs should he apply to, right? Like what actual unique strengths does he have for us to essentially then target specific companies or specific jobs to apply to. And then third, we're going to look into the strategic approaches for how to apply to these jobs once we have these kind of like the job market and the job landscape. How many jobs are you applying to right now?
Have I applied to so far? I mean, there's not
Yeah,
that many openings. I've only applied to one so far.
you've only applied to one job. Is that because you haven't had time or because you just are very selective at which job you're applying to?
Sure, a little bit of both. Plus, there's not that many openings that
In
seem to like
Portland?
fit me. Yeah, so I'm looking also like for remote jobs. I realized I kind of needed to expand my search and also expand the positions that I'm looking for. So I'm looking at other like data engineer jobs, data analyst, maybe software engineer jobs, just other job titles beyond data scientist.
What about data analytics or like some like, I don't know, something that's related to your manufacturing background? Like I think there's like supply chain analytics as well, right?
I haven't really looked at like specific manufacturing jobs, but I looked at like semiconductor manufacturing companies. Lam
Okay.
Research had a data scientist role
Did
open.
you apply for it?
I've it closed within like 2 days of me like finding it, so that was unfortunate. I just found out it closed this morning. There's
No,
a lot
yeah.
of like semiconductor companies in this area. I think it's a good I don't know, good place to be for that industry.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So when I say applying to jobs, so I really want you to think about it from an analytical mindset now. So in my opinion, like the mental model here is that one, you should probably set a date that you want to have a job by so that you can figure out how you can get in your applications, at a time before then. So let's say that you want to get a job by March 1st. All right. You're probably going to be interviewing from like mid-January to a few weeks before February, which means that now you have basically 6-week period right now to kind of apply to jobs and kind of get prepped for that interview process. And which means that if you want that one offer, you probably have to apply to around 100 jobs between December 6th and January 15th. So that means if you want 100 jobs in 45 days, you have to apply to basically 2 or 3 jobs a day. So just having applied to one job in the past few months is not going to cut it, is basically what I'm saying, right? Like you see how I backed into that math?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. There's really not that many openings though. I'll to like just be
Okay, so you
plainly
chose a
honest.
shitty profession then. Uh-oh, you chose a job that doesn't have any openings. Is that what you're just gonna do? Are you just like, all right, time to pivot again, Richard? Richard's
No,
like,
I
I'm
mean I'm
done.
just gonna keep trying. Is it like I
Okay, when do you want a
understand it's
job? When do you want a job, Richard? Just tell me when you want a job.
realistically or like ideally?
Ideally.
Realistically, yeah, I think it'll take like 3 months, March 1st. But ideally, I'll have a job by January.
Okay,
So, I
that's
mean,
not gonna happen at your
well,
current
yeah, I
role.
don't
Let's
know. I was
just say
being
that
an
as
idealist.
like, yeah, ideally I'd have, $100 million too, right? It's not gonna happen with what I'm doing
Okay,
today,
one is more
right? We
realistic
have
than the other, but
what is more realistic is that you have to make a step change to actually one apply to more jobs and like be in that job searching mindset. So that's one thing to even reach that goal of March 1st, right? Realistically, on the path that you're on, I think you're going to get a job by June 1st or July 1st. So that's why I'm saying like you have to make like a step change in terms of like your action over the past like few months because now you're finally done with school, right? You finally do have this like freedom to change it up. So what we'll do is let's create a weekly roadmap just in terms of like now until March 1st to then understand that, it's time to essentially kick it into gear and apply to jobs. And so what I'll do is I'll create a spreadsheet right now and I'll share my screen and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. So we have week right here, right? And then today is 12/6, but we'll start on the next Monday because you said it's a transition period, right? So next Monday is what, the 11th or something?
Yeah.
Right? All right. So I'm just gonna pull this down, right? Like the goal is get a job by March 4th. So we'll say put here this Richard starts his job, right? This is the
Yeah.
goal. Right. Okay. We essentially have this period, right? And actually, I'm going to make this date to just kind of emphasize what we're going to be doing over the next 12 weeks. So 13 weeks until you get a job. So we're on week 1 right now. Our week 1 starts next week. And then basically what the different time periods are. So I'm going to just add a few more columns and we're just going to add we'll see what happens here. All right. So basically this is a timeline of events. And like the general timeline that we're trying to hit, right, is that like interviewing and then you're like offer stage right here. So this is kind of like a general timeline. So that means applying to jobs basically starts here. And then interview prep probably happens around here, I would say, because you want to like give yourself some time to apply to jobs. And then you need to give yourself at least 4 weeks to interview prep. Obviously, you've been doing more of it because you've been working at interview query and you've been working on problems with us. So obviously, like, having some more time here is helpful, and you've done it slowly over the past year, ideally. So this is kind of like the timeline date, right? So again, this means that if we have 6 weeks to apply to jobs, again, I'm telling you that you got to apply to like at least 100 jobs here. We're calculating essentially 2 to 3 jobs per day. All right. Let's start out with this interview timeline and let's start out with like ramping up your job application process for the next few days. Like, can we agree to this? Does this make sense?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable.
Okay, cool. And then you think you could also apply to a few, like, at least, let's say, 2 to 3 jobs per day, right? Once we kind of figure out how to apply to these jobs and which ones that you should target first, right?
Okay, so here's the other thing. Like, should I be applying to like jobs that maybe is a little beyond my skill set? Maybe like I already mentioned that there's not that many positions open, so really have to expand my search. And that to me that tells me like I have to tailor my resume to like different job positions. Right now I've only made one resume for like a data scientist role, right? But it seems like if I am expanding my job search, I have to make one for like a software engineer, I have to make one for a data engineer, data analyst.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That makes tons of sense, right? Like just maybe tailor your resume and have one for each. I would probably set that up first. So like let's call
Okay.
this basically like setting up the resumes. I think the mental model that we could probably start with is basically take your existing background and your existing advantages, and we'll write them out and we'll figure out which jobs you can apply to. So we did that a little bit earlier today, right? Like we basically said that, if I create this like Richard's background plus advantages, right? So you said that there's basically, you have obviously experience in the semiconductor industry, right? Let's add additional like keywords here. Like what else is there? Like semiconductor, manufacturing. I'm going to add supply chain to this. What else is there? Kind of like in your background and your experience that you have an advantage of over other candidates.
Data pipelines. I mean that's
Building
kind of
data pipelines.
process improvement, operations management.
Cool.
My background's in industrial engineering. Um,
Yeah, which is very similar to data science in many ways. All right,
yeah.
cool. So I like the method that you were just saying, like you had a list of companies that basically have data science roles that are around this background and experience, right? So like I encourage everyone actually to do this if they're looking for new jobs or they're transitioning at least, so they're not coming from like a new grad. But even if you are a new grad and you have some internships, those internships give you that experience. So you can say that you've worked for like ed tech with interview query as well. you know, and consumer SaaS. Basically, that's like some general experience that you can use for your next job. Because, right, like if I'm hiring for someone, I want someone that has like, I want the perfect candidate. The perfect candidate basically worked at an exact similar company as my company and solved all the problems that like my company has yet to solve. And now they're just applying it to my company, right? That's a perfect candidate. So one step below that is essentially you, Richard, being like, all right, like I have semiconductor experience and I have data science experience, and this is a data science role at a semiconductor company, right? So I like that method. Let's go through every single like semiconductor company. I mean, do you have a list of them somewhere already that we can use or what?
In Portland, Intel's the big one. Um,
Okay.
Lam Research is another company. I don't know which has actual data related positions open.
How many are
Um,
there in Portland? It's like looks like built in Lattice. Lattice. What is Lattice?
just off the top of my head, like Analog Devices, SEH, On Semiconductor.
Great. Immediately, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna just try to implement some Boolean search tactics into here. And looking in the Portland area primarily first. And then additionally, we're gonna go in and we're gonna look at Intel. The first thing that I did is actually I searched data scientist and semiconductor. I got only 2 jobs. So you're right, there's like not that many jobs, but this one is new. So you should probably apply to this one, by the way, when you get this
Can you click
job,
on it?
right? Yeah, you already applied.
Yeah, to this one. This is the
Would
one
you?
job I applied to.
Okay. And you applied online?
I had someone refer me who works at Intel.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Did you figure out if your application got through yet or not?
No, this was on Friday and she referred me on like Monday. So it was just a few days ago.
Oh, okay. So I would say that's a really good strategy for all these ones where you're very, very like targeted. Like if you're very targeted as an applicant, you should probably use the method that we're basically trying to, where we do a lot more of an intense quality application versus like a spray and pray application, right? For these types of like conditions, so let's try like another keyword. So I'm going to say manufacturing now. And oh wow, we have 3 jobs, and 2 of them are still in Intel, but one of them is in Hillsborough, and it's a contract, right? So this one does, I guess, use manufacturing in some way. Let's try another keyword. Really, you should just try all these keywords. Like, do you have another keyword here besides this supply chain? Let's try supply chain and supply chain. Okay, like one more. All right, so we can open up this one. So I'm just gonna open up these last few and just kind of see what is related. Data scientists and operations. Let's look at this now. Okay, 5 jobs. All right, Zoom info. Zoom info. They're in Vancouver. Oh, that's 30 plus days ago. And then
Oh, there's a
this one.
second data scientist job at Intel. I intended to apply for this one, but this is one example of a job where I feel like I'm not as qualified for it.
Which one?
Uh, this one that you have, however, the second one on your screen right now. Yeah, this one
Yeah.
requires a lot more experience.
Yeah, exactly. It does require more experience, 5+ years of combined experience in SQL Python, but it's not bad to try for it. I mean, again, with a lot of these roles, right, it does look like if this like salary range is accurate, then it's probably going to be a more experienced type of job. And yeah, it does say in US, California. Why does it say US, California? It says hybrid remote.
I think California is the only state that requires salary disclosures.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's look at this one. Now, there's actually a couple other ones now, I believe. So this one, data engineer, data scientist, 4th-generation family-owned regional construction company with offices here, right? I think this is a good job to like, now that we're seeing that there's not that many jobs, right? Like you're seeing this right now, right? You're also seeing that this is a contract type of role. It really does make sense. Like unless you start applying to remote jobs, so remote jobs, I think they're always going to be high in demand. It's like you're not going to be in that area anyway. Like those are the ones you should probably spray and pray. Or if there's one that really matches your manufacturing experience or supply chain experience, then do the quality apply. But for everything else here, like you probably do have to quality, like reach out to these people and like figure out if they're going to be a good fit. And for this one, it seems like you kind of would be a good fit. And so like, what do you think about this job? Should we apply to this job? Because I think there's like a very good targeted way to apply to this job.
Yeah, I'm open to just, broadening my search.
AKA Richard doesn't love it.
I
All right.
mean, I don't know what this company does. I don't know anything about this company.
You just read it. They said they do construction. No? You don't read that? Oh, this is kind of interesting. So they're looking for individuals teaching. Okay, well, collaborate with business stakeholders, maintain detailed pipelines, utilize Vista by viewpoint. So interesting. So it's very much like a data engineer job. Like it's like I think this is kind of like the key role and responsibility that we're reading. Like utilize Vista by viewpoint to extract, transform, and load data from various sources. This is kind of like I read all these other things and they're all just kind of like, oh yeah, generic, develop data models, yeah, ensure data quality, okay, whatever, data governance, right? Like stay up to date, right? But at the end of the day, what they probably need is someone to maintain their ETL pipeline using this specific software service because this is the most specific thing that they wrote. Like everything else here is just cut and paste from other like data engineer job descriptions and responsibilities. So if you are someone who's looking for a job, just like understand that the job description, the art of reading the job description, there's a lot of stuff in here that you could also like really think that is useful. But at the end of the day, like if it's very specific, like this is something that I've never heard of. If we look it up, I'm sure it's some sort of like Microsoft, you know, nope, yeah, okay. See, it's construction accounting software and ERP tool, right? So they really need like some sort of pipeline management where they probably need a lot more reporting, dashboarding done, and all of that is kind of like basically in one centralized ERP system that they have right now. And we can see that right here. If you came to them and you just literally put this on your resume, obviously you have to have that experience for it. Or let's say that you had like a project here that you did like around Vista construction or something like that, or at least even just showed interest that you're willing to work on this, you'd probably be able to at least get an interview. And I think this is kind of like the key thing that we have to realize for a lot of these kinds of roles. All right. So, all right, I'm going to jump into the next part, which is like how we are going to now apply to this job. So,
All right, just
so
kind of reading through this job, I'm gonna be honest, I don't love the job because as somebody who like just graduated with a degree, I want to get into the company that has like a bigger data science, data engineering team that I could like learn a lot from. And this job seems very like industry specific. I don't know where else you could find, this Vista viewpoint software. It doesn't seem like if I like took this job and worked in it for like 3 or 5 years that I would have like a ton of skills that I could take and apply to like a next job and like level up my career further.
I actually think that you could probably level up your career faster when you're at a job that is like a company that is smaller, no matter what, even if it is more like a traditional family office type of company. I would say there's probably less mentorship opportunities here. But
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
end of
that's
the
exactly what
day,
I'm like looking for. Is like more mentorship, bigger teams, some, where
which
there
is
are
not
other.
desirable by anyone, by the way. Like no one
Okay.
wants to mentor junior candidates here. Like if you come in, you're like, oh, I'm looking for mentorship. People are like, no, like we want someone to start and add value, right? Like they're like, we don't want them to take value from us, which is basically what you're doing with a mentorship scenario, right? So if you want this, you can shoot for it, but like just know that it's like you're a less attractive candidate now, right?
No, I
And I
understand.
was,
I
yeah.
mean, it's I
So
kind
you
of
don't
want it
want a
both
job by
ways,
March
right?
1st. Huh? No, I
I
mean we
kind of
can
want
apply to the better jobs first, but at some point, I think
No,
what we have to
I
do is
yes,
look at the
yes, you're right. I
metrics.
can't be I
Yeah.
can't be like super picky choosy. So no, I
Oh,
understand.
absolutely not. Yeah. There's nothing that is allowing you to be choosy right now as a like master's graduate data scientist in a bad job market, right? Like this is the reality of the situation. Let's think about the different tiers. Like I still think that, we should get you a better job for sure. Like first, like we're not saying this is a bad job. I'm saying that like, obviously there's tiers of different kinds of companies you want. But at the end of the day, it's like you're only assessing who comes back to you with an interview. And that's basically like, are you willing to take it for a job or are you not willing to take it if it's a job, essentially, right? Like Like
Yeah.
that's basically all it is, right? So I think let's put this on the back burner. But for example, like what I would do is I would put this as like a job that you should apply to, and you should probably create in my opinion, just a little bit of a CRM so that you know what you're doing, right? Like, for example, I'm going to put this job right here, and we could put the title of the job as, data engineer, data scientist, right here. There's a position title. I'm going to put this right here. We'll call this position. We'll call this, well, just add a few fields, right? Company, JH Kelly, and then we'll add one more link. And then, we'll add like a status, basically one more like status, and we'll call it backlog. All right. So we know that you haven't applied to this job yet. That's completely fine. But for the time being, right, like we will basically just add it into the backlog. And now you have a little CRM for you to manage and just know that you're going to apply to X number of jobs, right? We're just adding a little bit of structure to this job application process. Most people, they just figure it out. I think, most people don't do this. It's really important to do this. All right. So this one you already applied to. You can always add that link as well. We'll do that later. But let's go through. There are a good amount of semiconductor jobs. We're also in like a really, really slow season, right? It's December, so there's gonna be a lot more job postings coming up. Okay, let's find like a few more jobs, and then let's do the exercise of actually doing a quality application, and then we can kind of wrap up this video. This is metadata, by the way. We don't need to include this in, but like I'm just gonna like let's just search a few more. So
Can
let's
we
say
look
industrial.
at
Yeah.
some remote jobs too? Like, I mean, is there anything different about applying to a remote job or like searching for those or something different about my application for that type of job?
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you apply for a remote job, one, there's just going to be a lot more jobs, right? So like if I type data scientist, there's now like 500 jobs, they're all remote. A lot of them are extremely senior roles, as you can see. And so I would say like you could apply to these jobs, just don't take a lot of time to apply. Like I would first have your resumes kind of positioned within like whichever ones they are, like whichever segments you want, like data scientists, data analysts, data engineering, right? And then I would just apply on the site and do like this apply now feature, right? This is almost like one click apply, I would say. It's smart apply on Indeed, right? So I would just apply to it and then move on. Because for the most part, it's going to be a lot harder because these jobs are, for one, remote and extremely in demand, right? So if I cite junior data scientist, remote job. So okay, so watch, I'll add this, right? So I'll add the quotes so that it's forced into the search. 2 jobs back, and this one too. You know what's a lot easier to get into? Data analytics. 1,600 remote jobs, right? Versus 500. And even these and data analytics jobs are not like generally also for the most part, they're not trying to be senior, like they take a lot of junior candidates, right? So if we type data analyst Portland, now we got 100 jobs. You can try to basically figure out which ones are qualifying for you. The one that I use a lot is I'll use semantic search, and this is what we use for the interview for a job board as well. So if you look at Portland, Oregon, so this is what we can do first. We can look at just jobs in Portland, Oregon that are data related because we already do a lot of these the work for at least assessing which ones are data related. This one is really interesting because it's engineer, manager, transport, which is not looking. Oh, it's engineering related. Okay, gotcha. But you can see this one's pricing analyst, and this is a supply chain company. So let's look at this one. Lead data engineer. No, probably not. Email marketing analyst. What do you think? Like, it's kind of interesting. It's like marketing analytics,
All right, I'm gonna
right?
be just plainly honest. I really don't want to take a job that paid less than before I started my master's, right? And
How much
I
did you
I
make
made about 100K
before?
when
You made 100K.
yeah, I
Okay,
base
so
salary. Yeah.
base salary. So you're trying to make at least 120K now, right?
Yeah, like I
Minimum.
want like this is the point of like doing a
If
master.
you are applying to jobs right now or you are interviewing right now, check out Interview Query for your data science and data analytics interviews. We have all of the questions that are expected on the interview coming up, as well as guides and resources and courses for your interview prep for you to get data science job offer that you always wanted. Thanks for watching today. Next week, we're going to work on actually applying to a few jobs with Richard. We're going to do the targeted method, and then we'll also look at different kinds of jobs that he'll be suited for as well. And then set up the next timeline around the interview prep for the next few months. We'll see you guys on the next episode.